Hello and welcome to the RevOps Show. We all know that the business process must drive the technology. The technology should never drive the business process. So when it comes to the technology we're using, how do we go about choosing which is best to assist our business process? What does this ideal tech stack look like? And how can we avoid tech debt? Doug and Jess discuss all these questions and more here on this episode. Let's get started.
Jess,
Doug,
what's going on?
you're all Springsteened out.
You know, Jess, it was an amazing week. You had 47. By the way, the website has been updated. I know you were worried.
I was.
47th time. 47th time for what you say? Bruce Springsteen, baby.
Was it everything you hoped it'd be?
It was. It was. He played 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That's incredible.
Which is a short concert for him.
That's still like...
No, it's great. He's 73 years old.
Yep.
As I've shared, I just want to be able to stand for 2 hours and 45 consecutive minutes when I'm 73 years old.
Yep.
He played one relatively slower song, acoustic guitar, and I was grateful for that because I sat down. Gave me a chance to sit down. I was sore the next day. But for all that on, he's 73. I actually think that's not the most impressive part of it.
Okay. What's the most impressive part?
Mighty Max Max Weinberg, he's a drummer.
Yep.
Some people may know him from Carson Daly. He was Carson Daly's show drummer and band leader. Not Carson Daly. Oh my God.
Conan. I was going to say. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, Carson's not tracking, and I used to watch Conan. I was like,
so
yeah.
Jess, it's been a very, very, very long week for me. So,
yep.
Max Weinberg, 71 years old.
I don't know how he's still drumming because like drumming is notoriously bad on your arms and backs and shoulders and everything. Like everything. I don't know.
It's bad on your knees.
Yeah.
Is what I mean. It put like he drummed 2 hours and 45 minutes. And no one talks about Max Weinberg being among the greatest drummers of all time. He's obviously very good, but he has an insane level of influence on the E Street Band. It's well known that like he can just read what Bruce is thinking and how he's feeling. So
right.
Just sets. I mean, obviously that's what drummers do is they set the tempo for the entire band. But you're 71 years old, and I want to be able to hold the drumstick when I'm 71 years old. And by drumstick, I mean a nice piece of chicken. Get it? See?
Oh my God!
Goodness.
Oh,
yes.
But I'm bummed.
But Jess,
yeah.
Not only did Bruce come back this week, it was also New Year's.
What?
The real New Year started yesterday.
Oh, that's right. Opening day.
How disappointed would your dad be?
He'd be upset.
Right now?
He'd be upset.
Because the real New Year's is opening day. This is
yep.
Life has begun again. It has come to sprout.
We are in baseball season officially, and I can say that because Kentucky's not in the playoffs. So it is officially baseball season for me.
So are you rooting for? I can't remember who.
I got no dog in
State.
I got no dog in this
Didn't San Diego
fight.
State beat Kansas State?
Yeah, I'm probably rooting
Kansas
for
State beat Kentucky.
Right, so the best of the best has to.
So doesn't.
Yeah.
The principle of Jess's extrapolation mean that the team that beat my team becomes
my team.
So if you could have only beat Kansas State, and San Diego State, Kansas State was close. So if you had beaten Kansas State by like 10 points,
right? Yeah. San Diego State's probably who I'm rooting for. If nothing else, they're
if Calipari had just offered that other kid $10,000
Oh,
more to come to the
here
school,
we
then
go.
maybe Kentucky would
Here
still
we
be
go.
maybe Kentucky would be in the Final Four.
It hurts. It hurts my heart. It's been a rough season.
It hurts because it's true, what I just said?
No, that's not what I said.
So I flew back last night.
So you can make the RevOps show today.
So I could make the RevOps show. Got in at 12:30 this morning. 12:30, 1 o'clock this morning.
Whew.
But you know what I watched on the flight home?
The RevOps show?
No, I did not.
What did you watch?
Facing Nolan.
Oh. Was it good?
Yeah, it was really interesting. As a matter of fact, apparently, so Nolan Ryan set the Guinness Book of World Record for the fastest pitch ever clocked. The time he threw it was 100.3 miles per hour.
Yep.
What they said in the documentary, though, is that, like what they used to measure the speed of the pitch was not precise. If you use today's precision, that it would have clocked at 108 miles an hour.
That's insane. That's insane.
Here's the other thing that's insane. He pitched, I forgot about that. Like I knew he was around forever, and he was.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a tough.
So I'm a Texan, so I have a love for Nolan Ryan because of that.
I know.
So, yeah.
I know. I was born in Texas. Texas is in my blood.
Yep.
That's my Nolan Ryan impersonation, everybody.
There.
His kids are hilarious. Actually, his grandkids are hilarious.
Okay, now I have to watch this. I already had it on my list, but now I'm going to watch it this weekend.
So, I guess it was his grandkid said this, and then his daughter talked about it. He said the middle son. Sorry, said it's really interesting growing up when Nolan Ryan is your dad, but your mom is the most competitive person in the family.
Yeah.
He pitched till he was 46.
Yep.
I forgot how many innings. Like I knew he was like how many innings he pitched per year. I mean, he had like a 3-year consecutive period where he was like 21 and 16, 22 and 18, 21 and 17. Like his lifetime batting average against was 203.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Like that is insane.
That is insane.
He has the record. He has 51 records.
Oh, okay.
He has the most no-hitters.
I knew that.
Right. 7.
Yep.
The most one-hitters.
Oh, okay. All right.
The most two-hitters.
2 hitters.
And the most 3-hitters.
It's incredible.
He has the record for the most strikeouts. He has the record.
I knew that too.
He has the record for the most walks. He has the record for the fewest hits given up per 9 innings pitched.
So that right there would give an indication that the dude's just pitched far more than anybody else. The fact that he holds all of those records, like.
Well, but here's the thing though: the fewest hits per 9 innings pitched takes out like the length of time that you play.
Yeah,
actually hurts you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he had that. He has the record for most punches thrown where he connected without getting ejected. I remembered the fight with Ventura. They gave some background on this, by the way. So apparently something had happened the night before or whatever. And so there was a bounty that if Ryan hit you and you didn't charge the mound, that you would get fined. And so when you see Ventura go out, you can kind of tell he really wasn't into it.
No.
So it was and then the thing that is just beyond belief. They showed his career numbers, like 21 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 46.
Okay.
He was his best.
40 to 46. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, increased average number of strikeouts per 9 innings, fewer hits per 9 innings, lower ERA. Like,
yep.
Power pitchers don't get better when they're 40. I mean,
I know.
He is just a freak of nature. It was a really And what was good is I turned it on. I was getting a little bit of work done at the end, turned it on. And as we were just about to land, the documentary was over. So it was the perfect length.
Oh, you gotta love that. I love that.
A couple glasses of wine.
There you go. There you go.
And then the RevOps Show.
I was gonna say today's show is not a review of Facing Nolan, though.
Oh yeah, I guess not. Huh? Oh, I got to do the first workshop on the Revenue Acceleration Framework workshop.
Oh yeah.
It was fun because the leader of the group actually is the hitting coach, volunteer hitting coach for University of Wisconsin Eau Claire softball team.
Of course he is.
So they appreciated all the baseball references that I made. It's
Cool.
Very exciting.
Good. Awesome.
What are we talking about today, Jess? If we're not, I thought I was supposed to prepare with a.
No, we are not
with
talking
a
about the
review and
baseball
synopsis of
season.
Facing Nolan.
No, we're not talking about the baseball season. We're not talking about the basketball season, and we're not talking about Facing Nolan. Today, I want to talk about how to create your ideal tech stack.
Building the ideal tech stack.
Yep. So I think the first place I want to start is, and we've talked about this before, but kind of the first thing we talk about when looking at tech stack is that we want to hire technology, not buy it. And when we talk about hiring technology, what does that mean?
So what it's doing, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of the jobs to be done theory. I hate the way that it's funny. I talked about this in yesterday's program, and I warned them. I said, you better have a very clear job description before you hire technology, because those technology companies, they're pretty good at sales. They're pretty good at FOMO. They're pretty good at enticing you. And so the whole idea that we talk about it as a solution, when you think about buying something, whether you realize it or not, you're very, feature benefit perspective. And the problem when you're talking about benefits is that most people, when they're talking about benefits, aren't actually talking about benefits. They're really talking about advantages. And the difference from a sales strategy standpoint, at least, is that an advantage is what's the positive thing that a feature creates in a general situation. A benefit is explicit. A benefit means it provides something positive to a specific area in a specific situation for a specific person or organization. And so it's like going to a grocery store hungry. You should never go to the grocery store hungry. Did you know that, Jess? You should never go to the grocery store hungry.
I've heard that.
Right. Have you ever tested it? I've tested it.
I have. It's not
I can
good.
acknowledge that it's wise. It's valid. It's a valid statement. If when you think about hiring it changes your perspective. So you're not buying technology, you're hiring technology to do something. Hey, that person's really good. They're great. If you think about it from a hiring standpoint, there's a really great person. We don't have a need for that role, but they're great. You're not going to hire them, right? We don't
Right.
do that, but we do it all the time with technology.
Yep.
Right. And so hiring it really kind of frames a whole lot of other, pieces.
Yep. So then, kind of taking that same standpoint of jobs to be done, we talk about creating a job description for the technology. So why is that important, and how does that work?
Well, I mean, in fairness, it's a little bit metaphorical, though we've done it. You may not know this about me, Jess, but I hate platitudes.
Shocker.
The danger of don't buy technology, hire technology, and I've seen it, is it's like, yeah. I mean, you've seen it when I've shared it with people. Go, oh my God, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But then they don't do anything different. And so I think it's important that you operationalize whatever the process you're talking about. So the amount of time that at least in a good hiring process that we spend to define the position, to define the KPIs, to define the role, to define the lanes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. there's a discipline, there's an element of, there's a standardization in the organization. Their job descriptions, if they're good, there's a standardized element to it. A good job description sets the basis for how you're going to consider it. By the way, one of the things that happens, we talk about resulting in conversations. We talk about, it's too easy to judge decisions or actions after the fact, positively or negatively. If you don't do this, you never judge what the rationale was. Like, I've seen technology get bought, looks like it failed, but if you really identified the origin of what led to the technology being bought, they ended up not sticking to that. A lot of times that's because the point of view of the software that they bought started to entice them to another place. And so if you don't have, I mean, like, you could call the job description, you could call it a requirements document.
Okay.
But here's what's wrong with 98% of technology requirement documents. And the 2% that aren't wrong are because they don't do what I'm about to say. And by the way, it won't shock you that you won't ask, why do people do this? The shocking part is that it's a bad idea. The problem with 98% of technology requirement documents is what they document are the requirements of the technology.
Well, why is that? Yeah. So that's my question. Why is that wrong?
Because, Jess, at Lyft, we live by a prime directive. On the RevOps Show, we live by a prime directive, and that prime directive is the business process must drive the technology should dictate the business process. And so, and by the way, CRM is the perfect example of this. If you were to put together your most robust technology requirement for CRM, and I've seen 389 line item requirements documentation for CRM, right? And with the exception of the security element, the security requirements do have new, but everything that's actually about the CRM has existed in CRM since 2002. Right.
Okay. So they're pointless is what you're saying.
Well, no, they're not pointless, right? It's just that I can meet, like, the problem is not the technology. I mean, look, do you want to make sure you don't buy technology that doesn't meet the core requirements that the technology needs to meet? Of course you want to avoid that. But if I meet the technology requirements, that doesn't mean that I've actually impacted the success level of it, right? So what your requirements document needs to be is a business process requirements document. It's a business motion, right? It's a requirements of the use cases. It should be written in the form of, what are the user stories, the scenarios?
Yep.
How is this going to be used? What is it going to impact? How is it going to impact those things, right? And in many ways, like, I had somebody actually yesterday that I was talking to on the prospect side that said, well, we needed to understand what the CRM was capable of before we could figure out what we need the CRM to do. And I said, that's a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. What you need to do is figure out, what do you need it to do? Then you can begin to find, right. Now, by the way, if you write this requirements document in the form of defining the business issues, the business motions, the user stories, what success looks like, how it's going to be managed, it begins to look a lot like a job description.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
And so since you're hiring the technology to do a job, right? Now, if you don't do that, then you get enticed by what's cool. You get enticed by, the quality of the salesperson. You get enticed by the quality of the marketer.
Right?
Good salesperson, wrong tech beats right tech, bad salesperson if you haven't defined the underlying needs. And technology has a magical power of putting itself in the driver's seat. And so if you haven't defined first off, if you haven't defined what that job description is, then you probably don't understand the needs well enough to be able to assess the technology to determine which one is the right one for you. So even if you say, well, gee, we're going to get the technology, then we're going to focus on the business process. Well, guess what? You might be able to overcome it.
Right.
But the technology is leading the business process.
Yep. And I think
why.
and I think we're talking about this for selection, but I also think, and certainly it should be done there, but I also think if you do that early on, it carries through the whole implementation to launch. Because I brought up the prime directive in an interview because I was talking to somebody with a training focus, and I was explaining to her kind of how we train and how we like to train on your process happening to use whatever your tool is. We don't train you on the tool. And I was kind of talking her through that and how we do that, and the want to define those user stories ahead of time. I mean, it helps with the build immensely. It helps identify the gaps within the build early on, all the way through launch. So certainly at selection, but it actually ends up helping you throughout the whole process once the selection's been made as well.
And you know where else it helps?
Where?
When things change.
Yeah.
Because then you're able to understand, have things really changed?
Right.
And then you're able to assess, is this still the right technology?
Yeah.
Is this still the right application?
Yep. Cool. So I want to talk about tech debt and how do you avoid the tech debt trap? Because I think that is with all the tech that we have available at our fingertips easily now, that is a trap that you fall into. So how do you avoid that?
Well, let me step back and talk about something that I think lost in the conversation around tech debt, because we talk about the tech debt of tech. And so we think tech, in my experience, we think the tech in tech debt is the same thing as the tech in tech. The second tech stands for technology.
Right.
The first tech stands for technical.
Okay.
So tech debt is technical debt.
Right.
Which means tech debt is far more than the technology.
Right.
It's the people, the processes, the systems, the tools, the technology, et cetera. It's all those things that are going on. And so what tech debt is, I mean, so the first thing is you can't stop LeBron. The best you can do is control him.
Right.
Or something like that. Or that.
Right.
So you're going to have tech debt like that. There's nothing you can do that's
right.
not going to create tech debt, because, you know, as the great philosopher Forrest Gump has said, shit happens. In the same way, when you think about when you think about hiring, let's go back to hiring. Let's go back to don't buy technology, hire it, write job descriptions.
Right.
What's one of the items that you have in a job description? Who does this person report to?
Mm-hmm.
What's the org chart?
Right.
Who does this person serve? Where does this person impact? Where does this person fit into? Are we looking for somebody that has cross talents because we're in a high change? So what you do to avoid it? This gets back to why business process is so important and why business process has to lead the effort. Is what the biggest cause of tech debt that is avoidable is we solve for the acute pain. So we end up treating a lot of symptoms. Hey, I have this problem. Hey, I have an order problem. You know,
right.
My reps entering orders is difficult. Look, yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of other things that we could do, and there's a lot of places, but you know what? All we need is, right? And so you define yourself by this problem. Well, if you have an order issue, yeah, there's probably something wrong with the tech.
Right.
But it's still a symptom. It's still only a symptom of something deeper. If you don't understand what that deeper thing is, then you're going to make decisions that may solve for today, but they build barriers, friction, difficulties for what you need tomorrow. And so what ends up happening, what tech debt is the cost of the decisions and actions that I take today that make the decisions and actions that I need to take tomorrow or in the future harder. And so if we're not thinking about the system, if we're not thinking about how we're managing holistically, if we're not thinking about what is this based on? You know, one of the biggest mistakes that I see that happens in how people are reacting in the world today, and why so many people are so overwhelmed is because we're just overloaded with change.
Yeah.
And so we feel like everything has changed. But everything hasn't changed. And as a matter of fact, more has not changed than has changed. Right? And so the people who deal with change the best are the ones who are able to anchor themselves in the stability of the elements that have not changed. Right. And the same thing is true in a system, in a design, and so forth. And so how do you avoid this? You think about what is the holistic system?
Hmm.
How is this playing into what we're trying to do? What are the core elements? Hey, this is an area of ambiguity. This is an area where maybe we're a little bit more immature. There's going to be a lot of change here. Okay, that's going to tell me the decision that I need to make here is, yes, I need to solve this acute problem, but I need to make sure I do it in a way, right? And so you're able to build upon a solid foundation that enables you to better make changes. It also means, the second reason that tech debt emerges itself is because you're penny wise and pound foolish. It feels right to pay $20,000 today because I've got a $20,000 problem, because I feel like I got a $20,000 problem today.
Hmm.
But I have $1 million problem
Right.
over the next 5 years. Well, if I do a whole bunch of $20,000 problems, before you know it, I spent $10 million and I still have this big hunking $1 million problem that I'm in a hole on. Right. And so I didn't deal with it correctly. So yeah, I saved some time, I saved some money in that moment, but because of that, I also made it harder for us to deal. Or like a big area of tech debt is every day someone's doing something that they shouldn't be doing is the
Hmm.
day that becomes more a part of normal,
Yeah.
which means inertia takes on even more. And so let's put that off for like the biggest counterintuitive element. And this became really clear because we actually kind of lost. This wasn't, I don't think, the only reason we lost a piece, an opportunity that we should have won was, and it really was a rationale around a budget issue.
Right.
And the argument that they latched onto was, well, it doesn't make sense to do an implementation this big because it's too much change. And so our people will resist it, right? Because it's change. And so we
Yeah.
want to reduce the change. We want to minimize the change so that we can get it in, right? That was the rationale. Now, by the way, it does make sense,
Right.
right? It is a very logical thing. It just doesn't work because what you realize is there is a place where there is too much change, no question about it. But if you're dealing with change
Hmm.
and the change you make to deal with change is not enough change,
Yep.
then you won't get the change that you want. So if the change isn't big enough, hey, we want to get adoption because we're so worried about our people adopting the tool.
Right.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna make it so nothing else changes except they're just gonna use the tool.
Right.
Well, if nothing else changes, you have two things. First off, why am I going to use it?
Right.
The second thing is habits are a bitch.
Yep.
Inertia is a bitch.
Yep.
And so if the change isn't big enough, then it doesn't break the pattern for me to remember the change. I stay in my old habit. There's not enough force to break the course and speed that people are on. Right. And so there's another element of tech debt. So every day that's happening is a day that this is the norm. And it's also a day that that we fall a little bit further behind where we need. So the gap between where we are and where we need to be gets a little bit bigger.
Yep.
Now, look, can you address every piece of tech debt? No, you can't. You cannot do that. There are times where you have to make a decision, even though yes, this is going to create some tech. This is likely to create some tech debt.
That's what we call a trade-off.
Well, it's what we call a trade-off. But also what happens when you do that is you do mitigate the cost a little bit because you realize, yes, this is, but that awareness changes how you do what you do.
Yep. Absolutely. So how frequently should your tech stack be reviewed?
Wow, that's really variant. It depends upon the size of your tech stack,
Mm-hmm.
the size of velocity, how much change are you going through? So I would say that you probably want to do, you've got a core, your foundational pieces of tech, your platform elements. You probably want to be reviewing them every 3 years. I mean, there's an annual level to something, but the reality is if you were to change your platforms on an annual basis, that
Kind of
wouldn't
like
be
if you changed your project management tool every 6 months.
Well, no, you should change it every 3 months. We work in 90-day cycles, Jess. So if you're not changing the project management tool every 90 days, then it gets out of sync with the cycle. Annually, so every 1 to 3, like everything should be reviewed somewhere in that, there's something should be reviewed annually. Now the way I might review annually if I've got a large tech stack is every quarter I'm reviewing a segment of those applications. I also think one of the dangers too is you should have some element of what is the replacement time.
Mm-hmm.
And your replacement time is probably going to run 30. It's going to run probably 90 days to a year.
Yep.
So like, if I wanted to change my CRM,
mm-hmm.
like let's say we wanted to change our CRM, right? I would need probably 2 years to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we had a less robust implementation, it might be a year.
Right.
But one of the things that happens is we look at our application and we tie that review to the renewal cycle.
Yeah.
And we review it too close to the renewal cycle where we can't really make a change anyways.
Rolling my eyes because I'm thinking of implementations that we've been involved in where that's been the case.
and it's clearer, but there's this whole invisible thing where, we need to be thinking about this. Is this still?
Yep.
Because when you take a piece of technology out, you're making a change.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
If you're shifting it, you're making so there's a whole place, where that happens. But yeah, I would say. And the other thing is, if your environment, if your context shifts materially,
mm-hmm.
then it resets everyone's review cycle.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you, when you're reviewing your tech stack, kind of how do you go about that? What do you review?
Well, the first question I'm going to ask is, what did we hire this for in the first place?
Which goes back to.
And is that still relevant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Am I going to create a job description every time I expand? I mean, the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that's creating tech debt and killing productivity and resiliency is tech sprawl.
Mm-hmm.
And all these bits and pieces and features that begin to expand and oh, look, it can do this. Oh, look, it can do this. And look, this is all, I mean, I hope everybody understands that this is all product-led growth, dark patterns. Okay, I gotta go through the gatekeepers to get my enterprise level or my platform level tech into your company. But now I'm going to add feature, push it down to the user level so the user can start using it. And before you know it, you've got 300 people using 14 different tools to do the same thing in different places, and you don't understand why your technology isn't working. And then when you want to replace something, that is all by design. This is not an accident. Sprawl is not an accident. So always be thinking about, what did we hire this for?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it should all be driven by, none of this stuff should be all that hard or mysterious because what you're managing is your business process.
Right.
Right. That's really where the change occurs. So what did we hire this for? What's changed since we hired it?
Mm-hmm.
How's it performing? Now, I'll tell you, the nice thing about technology is when you buy technology, there's no social contract. It is a egalitarian review.
Yep.
Hey, you're a nice technology. You're friendly. I appreciate it. But you know what? I can get 10% more for 30% less.
Right.
You know what? If you manage your contracts right, I don't have to pay my technology severance when I find somebody
right.
when I find something better that comes along.
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Now again, when you change technology, you change process. When you change technology, you're changing things. So don't, oh, wow, that's got a cool feature that this one doesn't have. Let's replace it. Because there is a cost to that. But
Right.
I'm always asking the question, can we reduce headcount from an apps perspective?
Okay.
Right. Where can we, like, I think the most powerful question you can ask is, where can we find one tool to replace 3 applications?
Yeah.
You know, your right tech stack is going to be a core stack. You're going to have a core, your core platforms,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your core platform applications, your primary apps that are going to be strong, robust. Then you get into your secondary and complementary levels that are going to be very point-based solutions. And that's where I need something exceptional.
Right.
Those exceptional products will probably, they probably will and should have a premium. And one of the reasons that they should have a premium and you should be good to pay for it is if you're not paying a premium for your point-based product, for your point-based application, then the strategy of the organization, the strategy of the product provider is to find ways to get tentacles in to make replacing really hard.
Yep.
Right? Because what any tech company, any SaaS tech company is going to do today is they will gladly trade MRR or ARR for increased lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Because if they can add a tentacle, not only will they actually increase their lifetime, which will increase their valuation,
Right.
but it will also lower their cost to support. Because if you're harder to get rid of, then you can be that much more upset before I have to get rid of you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look,
absolutely.
Look, the idea of SaaS was a great idea. It was the idea that I'm going to take, you know, instead of you paying $10 million for this, so you can't really justify doing something, right? I'm going to let you pay it as a monthly subscription. But what's missed there is the incentives then, because the structure changed, the incentives changed.
Right.
And you know, we just had a conversation today where someone was talking about one of our ongoing services programs. They don't, like, this is like a subscription. We don't want a subscription. We just want a block of hours that we can use as we need them. Okay, that's fine. We will entertain that, but understand you're going to pay a much higher cost per hour. Right. You're going to have, you know, because we have to manage it. It has to be right. And so those things happen. So you have to think about, like, I always say, never play the new game in the casino.
Why is that?
Because when there's a new game in the casino, what I can tell you is, I don't need to know anything about the game, and I can tell you with 98% confidence that it has the lowest payout to player in the casino. Because casino floor space is really valuable. Have you seen any casinos that really have a lot of room to add something new?
No.
So that space is really important.
Yeah.
And so here's how you kind of look at it. If this isn't going to pay the casino more than a slot machine will, then they're going to put a slot machine there. Right.
Yeah. Right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you know, you need to have craps. Craps has better odds than a slot machine, but it's not a casino without craps, right? So, like, and by the way, what do you see? You see 2 to 4 craps tables usually. Right?
Yeah.
In a very defined area. Right. So when they came out with War, I don't know if you remember, they came up with, like, you could play War as a casino.
So I remember it as from Vegas Vacation. I didn't realize it was an actual thing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. It's like, I got news for you. Casino, like, don't play that game. Right? The casino's gonna win. Right. By the way, the only casino games that exist that have any ability for the player to win, they've been around for thousands of years, and they existed before there was actually a casino. Poker, blackjack, craps. Those are the only 3 games that have any element of the player impacts their performance.
Yep.
I have a friend who loves roulette, and he's, no. I've got a great strategy for roulette. No, you don't. There's no such thing as a strategy for roulette. There's not. All right. So, I don't even remember the question we were talking about, but we were talking about
tech stack to be reviewed. You talked about reducing headcount for apps.
Oh, right. So on those point applications, you should be willing to pay more because the incentives are going to be aligned, right? That again, that becomes another place of tech debt. And so what ends up happening is I get this, the tentacles are there, it's harder to remove. So what ends up happening is I end up having to add another app to it to address this other thing over here, and that's where the sprawl occurs. So that's, it's like, would you hire somebody for less than what you've determined someone capable of the job would need to be hired for? I mean, I know some people who will do that. Their turnover is astronomically high and their results suck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So when you have this clarity, by the way, when you're clear about your business process and you're clear about these other things and you've got job descriptions, one of the things that you begin to realize is you don't need as much tech as you thought you needed.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Jess, as we've gotten more and more focused on tech implementation and we've gotten more understanding and insight of it and we've gained more expertise. I mean, it's the thing that blows me away. We use it. Like we use less of it.
Yeah, I know.
Remember, we used to be, hey, this new thing. Hey, we got this. Remember, I was like,
I remember like every other week we were.
Because all you had to do was show me what this, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? We could do it for this. We could do it. Oh, look at right. And now it's like, nope, I got the business process clear. Hey, you know what? That's really cool. By the way, I have a friend of mine who like has my brain going gangbusters, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, yeah, but you know what? We've got like 7 places to address before that's the place that would have the biggest juice for the squeeze. And so like the fact that I'm not more and I think he is surprised as well, because he remembers me the days of you throw an idea at Doug and he
jumps on it. Yeah.
And like, and look, I mean, we've got the results to show for it. So I think it works.
Yep. So that's actually a nice segue into my last question, which is, I'm a firm believer in if everything's a priority, nothing is. So like once you've done your review, how do you triage what to do? Because I think that's another place. It's a trap certainly we used to fall into of wanting to implement too many things at once. So how do you triage, what you should focus on first, second, and third?
Give me a little bit more context to the question, just because I'm.
So let's say that you've done a review and you've identified 3 areas of your tech stack where a change needs to be made, an enhancement needs to be made. How do you triage what you're going to tackle first?
It's going to be completely by. I mean, there's a whole series of underlying questions about, what is the context? What is the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Where, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is impacting the problem? What's causing the problem? What is the problem impacting? How much effort is it going to take to make the change? What else is impacted by the change? What is being held up because the change hasn't occurred? I mean, this is why, I mean, what we call the strategic RevOps roadmap is so important. Or to get even more specific, what we talk about is the 3 zones of execution. Mm-hmm. There's always a prioritization schema, and that is what strategy is all about. So like to answer that question, those are, I mean, first off, they're never easy questions.
Right.
So they're hard questions. But the thing that make them addressable is when you have a real actual strategy, not something that you call a strategy. There's a hypothesis, a diagnosis of the situation. There's a series of guiding policies, and constraints and actions to follow. Like you're seeing what's happening. Yeah. So it's, I mean, this is where we're also getting into, you can listen to our episodes about system design.
Yep.
To be able to make these decisions. I mean, the truth is that you're always, if you've got a strong structure and you've got a strong approach, you've got stability with constant change. And yep. One of the things that makes change hard is when you don't have constant change. So too often we change our tech stack by event.
Yeah.
Think about how applications are managed today, right? They used to be managed to upgrade cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got managed to release cycles.
Yep.
Right? Summer, winter. You'd come in, boom, change. It's like a new application. A lot of stuff. Here's new stuff.
Yep.
But now it's every day. And now it's multiple times per day. Now it's No, when that's done wrong, it feels like the thing is always changing. But if you think about it, HubSpot has gotten much better at this because HubSpot used to have that. Well, every time I go in it looks different, but you don't have that problem anywhere near as much anymore. They've gotten much better at that.
No.
As a matter of fact, they almost get to the point where like what's up with HubSpot? There's nothing new.
Yeah, the only time I notice is if I'm looking for something very specific that I'm like, oh, this is in a slightly different place than it was. I ran into it today. Actually, I was demoing something.
You know what? Like, and then you go, well, wait. Here's a list of 700 things that didn't exist 90 days ago, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, right, there's always change. It makes the change easier. So if we're always tweaking and adjusting our tech stack and moving those things forward. And the focus is on velocity, not speed, consistency, not right. So these are not things that get done by event. These are things that get staged, operationalized, executed, and that's what leads to being truly flexible.
Yep, I agree. All right, I got a couple of key takeaways. So don't put together a tech requirements document, put together a business process requirements document, and that feeds into everything from selection to implementation to review cycles. And then make sure that you look at the system holistically and not just address the acute issues. I see that frequently. And then what you just said about velocity, I think is key as well. So the constant change actually makes it easier when you make future changes and maintaining that velocity of change.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Yeah, I think those are the keys to building and managing. You know what? I don't like the term ideal tech stack.
You don't?
I do not.
Okay.
I think it's good for maybe a blog post title or maybe a title for a podcast episode. I don't think you should be pursuing the ideal tech stack. I think you should be pursuing the right tech stack for you.
I like that. Yeah.
It's not going to be the ideal tech stack.
Well, and the ideal tech stack might be the wrong decision for you. If you're trying to reach the ideal, that might not be the best solution for you.
I'll tell you what, if you have the ideal tech stack, you are spending too much money. It is costing you. The juice isn't worth the squeeze for ideal.
Yep.
But by the way, I'm a believer in resiliency and robustness. I'm a believer in efficiency. But as you know, I think efficiency causes a problem.
Yep.
Right? If we get too efficient. I will tell you that if you have the ideal tech stack, then you're not being efficient enough. If everybody has everything that they want, let me put it to you this way. I've quoted some philosophy, right? I talked about Forrest Gump. Let me share another philosopher, Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. The ideal tech stack it satisfies your wants.
Yeah.
And I promise you, if you have an ideal tech stack, you've got tech sprawl, right. So the ideal tech stack is not the ideal.
Right.
It's the one that gets the job done within the constraints that you have and enables you to continue to move.
I agree. And on that note, thanks everybody.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. I like the conversation Doug was having right at the end, where he mentioned he didn't like to think about the ideal tech stack because what is ideal to a business? Ultimately, when you choose tech for your company, you have to go back to your business process to make sure that it's being assisted by that technology. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Leave us a review and share the episode. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug or Jess about your tech stack, email me at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on Twitter @demandcreator. Until next time, remember, you can't solve your upstream problems downstream.